Marvel Comics have been absolutely terrible this past 12 months. Yes, we do have the Ultimate Universe and Ultimate Spider-Man. That does feel like a high point for Marvel Comics. You get a decent miniseries here and there, like maybe a Wolverine deep cut from Chris Claremont that's absolutely awesome. But most of the in-continuity ongoing stuff isn't all that good. Maybe Incredible Hulk's the best thing out there. Maybe it's Spider-Boy, but for the most part, most of it feels more like ASM or Avengers, or even some of the other even worse titles out there, like an NYX, which has been absolutely terrible. Doc is a Marvel veteran. He's been through the highs, he's been through the lows, he's been through all the rebounds. And I definitely want to have a conversation with Doc on what Marvel can do, not logistically or behind the scenes with leadership. What could they actually do with the characters in the universe to get people interested in Marvel Comics again?
Marvel has an A tier that is probably almost on par with Superman and Batman in that they have Spider-Man and possibly Wolverine. But they're B tier with Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, a lot of the X-Men characters, Thor, Doctor Strange. Those characters, in my opinion, are significantly higher than DC's. So you have this amazing assortment of characters to play with. And right now, what do you do with these characters to get them back in the limelight? I think you got to start with your big one, Spider-Man. He is the number one character at Marvel. You have to make a change in direction. They've been trying to play with this swinging bachelor Peter Parker, except for because they also hate men, he's just a loser. Not even a lovable loser, just a fucking loser. What is the big problem here? I think it still comes back to One More Day. While I don't think you can retcon the retcon of One More Day out, what you can do is have a final confrontation. You build up to it for a few years where he beats Mephisto in a challenge. You know, Doctor Strange can be involved, set it up and everything, and establish the rules and be kind of the arbiter and judge so that it binds Mephisto from ever fucking with Peter or his marriage or anything else ever again. So while maybe him and Mary Jane aren't remarried, she never met Paul. Paul vanishes. So she never had become Jackpot. You start wiping the slate clean by you making everyone else around him make the decision that the original timeline of Peter Parker was the right one. And all the shit that happened afterwards shouldn't have happened because of a deal with the devil. I think as part of that, you're also going to eliminate a lot of the redundant spider characters. You know, even Miles ends up not having any real connection with Peter. He might still be in the universe because I don't think that would change, but he wouldn't have any connection to Peter. Then I have to say it, you kill Aunt May. Not anything bad. Just have her die of old age. She just needs to move on from the book. We've had 60 years of Peter with his aunt and worrying about her and blah, blah, blah. I feel like it's time for her to move on.
I don't know. At this point, with the way that they treated Peter the last, decade or so, I would just like to see him have a steady job.
Yeah.
Not be a loser.
He's got to get away from his high school job. He needs to have an actual adult job. He is in his 30s at this point. He could be doing consulting for folks. He is a scientist. He does have a degree. You could give him, especially in the modern world with modern gigs and everything, you can give him a job where he doesn't have to go into an office and then, hide the fact that he had to run out and go stop a crime from his boss that's worrying about him punching a clock.
So Spider-Man's the big one, and I agree with you. They got to tackle that one first because the Spider-Man character absolutely sucks, and you have so many variations of them. They definitely need to get rid of a lot of that stuff. Now, the other enormous problem that's sitting right in front of your face, and you're the world's biggest X-Men fan, is this X-Men franchise. You thought at the end of Krakoa and Fall of X, we're like, wow, it literally can't get better. It has to be better than this. And now we're into the From the Ashes era, and it turns out that's not the case. You could actually do it worse, and they're doing it worse.
Absolutely.
How do you fix the X-Men line?
Kill Moira. That's it. I mean, you get her back into her body and you kill her. They already have a mechanism for this in place. You have a bunch of different X teams all working around the world, not really getting along, operating under different.
I don't want a bunch of X-Men teams. I want one X-Men team. And when you show me you can fucking do that one right, then you get a second one.
Oh, no. What I mean is a bunch of different X teams, not X-Men teams. And
I think the thing that's really destroying X-Men right now, and it started obviously during the Krakoan era, that the writers of X-Men and certainly the editorial staff believe the only thing X-Men can represent is LGBTQ issues now. And that's all they are, is an allegory for that. They need a firm new direction on what they represent, what they stand for, and what it is that they're fighting against, because what they're doing right now is so boring and cliche and absolutely terrible that there's no future. What should they be fighting against?
Well, first of all, they should be fighting against evil mutants smearing the name of mutants throughout the world and being
the original premise of the team.
Yes, they should revert back to that everything in the kitchen sink franchise that they were. If you want to have Sentinels show up, fine. You want to have a mutant hate group, an anti-mutant hate group pop in every so often and cause them problems, sure, whatever. They should also be out there dealing with alien invasions and going on adventures in space. You can also have them do it where they're fighting on behalf of some oppressed group on a planet that still has planet-wide slavery for a particular ethnic group or something in whatever the alien ethnicities are. You can do shit like that. You need to stop making it a straight up allegory for trans kids or drag queens or whatever current topical bullshit was on the news 6 months ago when the writer started writing the book. That needs to be the absolute mandate from editorial.
The other big thing, I think, is the X-Men has expanded far too wide. We have people on X-Men teams that aren't even mutants. We have villains on X-Men teams that the X-Men should actually be fighting against. And the roster is so enormous and so stuffed with characters people don't even give a shit about. They need to consolidate it down to like 20 core X-Men members. You can acknowledge that some of the other stuff exists out there and they're doing their own thing, but you need to get a core group and run with it.
I'd say all of the freak X-Men. I mean, I'm not talking Nightcrawler, who actually has a useful power. I'm talking Glob fucking Herman and Eye-Boy and Shark Girl. They need to be relegated back to the sewers with the rest of the Morlocks like they always historically would have been. First of all, an editorial mandate. You are not introducing a single new heroic or recurring X-Men character for the next 2 years. Hell, I'd say 5 years. You need to restore back to kind of the unspoken rule of what the purpose of Xavier's was. It was not a school. You undo all that Morrison, kumbaya, bring everybody with an X gene into the school to teach them how to use their powers. Fuck that. If your powers do not have an offensive or heavily defensive aspect and you can't fit in with a basic image inducer, you're not invited. The X-Men were Xavier's personal strike team and he paid them with room and board. It was a transactional relationship. It wasn't some fucking charity. You only were there if you were useful to the cause. And a lot of these characters that have been introduced are absolutely useless to the cause. And if they don't want to fight, they're not fucking invited.
They got to cut down on the amount of books. We don't need 15 new X-Men books in a given month.
6 is your
Even if
max.
it was great, it would be too much.
We're done trying to make a bunch of team characters into solo heroes too. None of these characters can carry a book. They've never been able to carry a book. They are not going to be able to carry a book. They are not interesting enough. They are not unique enough. Their personal nemesis characters are fucking boring. Storm does not have a rogues gallery, no matter how much they try to do so. Jean Grey doesn't either. Neither does Dazzler. Neither does Psylocke. None of these characters, they have groups that them as a member of the X-Men have come into conflict with. They have other villains that they as a member of the X-Men team have come in conflict with. They have zero nemesis themselves. And you can't have a solo book if the character doesn't have anybody to fucking fight.
Now, the third franchise that's important over at Marvel would be I guess it used to be Marvel Heroes, according to Brevoort. Now it's the Avengers group, where obviously you have the Avengers. You can have a West Coast Avengers, any type of Avengers title. But underneath that, you'll have your Captain America, your Iron Man, your Incredible Hulk, your Doctor Strange, your Black Panther, your Captain Marvel, all those type of books. And right now, the Avengers book is just real boring. I don't even know what they need to do to really make the Avengers cool or important again.
Honestly, the individual solo books need to be the big deal in the Avengers line. If you could sell a great Captain America, a great Iron Man, a great Hulk, and a great Thor book, you know what you're going to do? You're going to sell 4 times as many books as you could of all of Avengers if the Avengers team book is really good.
Well, and also in the Avengers team itself, it's been weird. When's the last time Steve Rogers was the leader of the team? Yeah. It feels like Black Panther and Iron Man are like co-leaders unless Captain Marvel's there, and then she's the unquestioned leader now.
Exactly. That comes back to something that you'll solve the minute you fire the editorial and most of the front office people. Because we don't like the fact that the straight white guy with traditional conservative attitudes is the leader of the Avengers. So anything they can do to undermine that. Once you get those people gone, that mindset goes away.
Stop replacing him with Falcon Cap.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen.
No, Sam will return to being the Falcon, the real Falcon, the unquestioned Falcon. We're going to get him back into his old costume because that's the one that worked. All of his other costumes that they've tried for him since don't fucking work. And that's why everybody's sitting there going, this isn't Falcon. I feel like this is something that can just be flat out said. All of the dollar store knockoff replacement characters, the quote unquote legacy characters at Marvel, they're all dead. They just get thrown into the sun and they're never heard from again. The Sentry comes back, gets really, really mad because there's another Sentry. You know, the cripple Sentry that they have right now. He gets pissed off that everybody else had their gig stolen. So he takes all of the pretenders, throws them into the sun. The Avengers has to go back to being a, I guess, sanctioned organization where the government gets involved sometimes and screws with them. Certain characters can't pass the government background check or refuse to be allowed to be members. We need something to prevent them from just shoving every single character under the Avengers whenever it's convenient, and add some internal conflict as well. Also, they're not allowed to be best friends anymore. Defamiliarizing the characters from one another, I think, is absolutely essential, where they know each other, they know of each other. None of them all have each other's phone numbers. They don't text. They don't go out for drinks. They don't go bowling. And in fact, almost all of these people, all these heroes have to start spending their social life with normal people again.
I think the other franchise out there that probably could use some TLC, although it's doing better than the other 3 right now, is Fantastic Four. You only really need the one book and maybe a thing and something tee up or a Marvel 2-in-1 type of thing. Is there anything that you think they could do with the Fantastic Four where they would get them more on track?
Honestly, there's not a lot other than upgrading and creative. Because look, even the direction that they're going in, where it is doing the thing that I kind of wish Fantastic Four would do more of, which is science adventures, where they're more of adventurers than they are superheroes. They're more scientists than they are superheroes. And there's a lot more of the family dynamic. Ryan North, for as terrible as he is, has actively been taking that direction. You just need it done by somebody better. So I don't think a directional change for Fantastic Four is necessary. Just a creative upgrade to somebody more, actually competent.
I think it's been doing all right. It's an enjoyable series. It's not always great, but when it's good, it's a hoot.
Fantastic Four is the one book that I feel like is actually going in the right direction. I feel like these are the big things. You could worry about like the Marvel Knights kind of street level characters. They need to get back to being street level. Don't expect Spider-Man sales on Daredevil. You need a Punisher ongoing. He can't really be interacting with the regular Marvel universe a lot. I feel like he should pop in and out of the regular universe, but for the most part, he's got to deal with street level crime. Daredevil, Elektra. Okay, first of all, and I feel like this is probably where I should have started with, there are no legacies and mantles in Marvel anymore. That's be my number one edict. Electric Nachos can't be Daredevil. she is just electric nachos. Lara will never be Wolverine because she's not allowed to be Wolverine.
She's X-23.
She is X-23 or any other name except for Wolverine. And I would take my general philosophy where being a superhero is by definition an egotistical endeavor. And as such, the last thing anyone would ever want to do is stand perpetually in the shadow of somebody else by taking their name. They would always want to be unique.
We'll see if Marvel is able to do anything with Spider-Man, X-Men, or Avengers. If you appreciate what Doc and I are doing here, we did have a fuller conversation that's live right now on Think Critical Patreon, totally unfiltered, uncensored, and you also get our review of ASM 63 this week, the debut of Justina Ireland on Amazing Spider-Man, likely to be the new writer on that book. If you would like that entire conversation, there is a link in the video description for the Patreon.